Swan Dive Protocol and the Fourth Dimension. When I do work in the fourth dimension, I'm experiencing, not seeing. It's hard to convey in words, but I'll do my best. It is like chi. One must feel it rather than purely study it, otherwise, comprehension becomes muddled and unclear. Take 5 steps forward, now 5 back. Reach your arms out in a 45-degree angle and rotate them in circles. Look up, and now look down. This is our regular third dimension in physicality. Try something else now. Tell me where your thoughts are. No, they're not in your head. But then where are they? Welcome to the mental plane. It intersects with the fourth dimension, the bridge itself to crossing that threshold. You can't physically reach out and grab a thought. You can think it and identify with it, hold it and feel it. And with this understanding, we know what the fourth dimension is in perception. Across all timelines, you exist here and even in higher dimensions, but we have to start in the mental plane bridge to branch into the fourth and to get anywhere else. The fourth dimension by itself is where time is understood and experienced in the way that we do. Crossing from the fourth into the fifth dimension is where multiple timelines are held and accessed. The sixth dimension is all potential timelines in this universal expression, and beyond that, it gets very weird, to put it lightly. Taking into account the importance of the fourth dimension and its bridge to other dimensions above, this means every age you've been, every thought, feeling, the sensations, and very experiences that culminate to structure your ego identity, they all independently function in this space. They live here and come together to structure your consciousness and funnel out of your Atman, center of soul structure, as a point of awareness in this unique experience and expression of self. It's you. All of it is. All of it is you. The self can be fractured, though, disconnected and lost. Pieces can break away and get swept into the vast void of the abyss. The darkness of the mind can replay these echoes of memories, distant calls of a tangled self tapping its foot on nerves and synaptic pathways, into the mental field, screams of nothingness. It can be more terrifying for the expression of you that is disconnected completely, not the you as you know yourself, regardless of how uncomfortable your ego feels. The disconnected version is in pure soul agony. These fractured parts are still rooted to the physical realm, no matter how shattered the self becomes. Because you are physically alive, these parts are still rooted to your body and mind, even though they independently exist in the fourth dimension as their own infinite expressions. They have always existed, and always will. Understand this. You coming into the form you have now, making the choices you've made, having the experiences you hold, out of all existing and infinite possibilities and multiverse divisions of your unique expression, you became who you are. Because of this, you established a baseline of existence, where all these parts connected together the same as cells in the womb form a fetus. You only exist physically, mentally, and spiritually as you are because you piece together from the grand cosmic structure to have a personalized expression in the mind of Creator. Think of the lost shard as floating away and trapped at the same time. Even the you that is hurting still has a baseline and connection with other parts. But a shattered shard is on its own, lost in the vastness of the fourth, and divided out into the fifth, which displaces its sixth dimensional essence. But through the fourth dimension, we can sync them together in alignment again. The fourth spatial dimension overlaps the third dimension. It is not just an additional pocket, but its own entire space while simultaneously containing the lower dimension. The concept of the fourth dimension mainly came to light in the 19th century by Mobius, but it was known of prior to this for thousands of years by shamans and mystics. A three-dimensional object can be taken and rotated onto its mirror image in the fourth dimension. This gives us access to layers of the spiritual body that we can't access within the third dimension, but through the consciousness we can navigate this realm and explore it. Pay attention to the mirror image concept, as I will reference it on a deeper level when I talk about Swan Dive Protocol. Reaching the sixth dimension causes one's identity of self to disappear entirely. It doesn't die, but traveling there requires the loss of self and conscious understanding and the adoption of unity in eternal Atman. The same way we cross the bridge in the mental plane to the fourth dimension is the same way that higher vibrational entities cross from their dimensions down to the sixth dimension to interact with us. That is a low dimension for them, but a very high one for us as physical beings, especially because all potential timelines exist there. Take a moment to actually let that statement sink in. To be aware as you understand awareness requires us to remain in the third or fourth, The fifth starts to get fuzzy, and because the rules change exponentially and the sixth requires a much higher shift in expression of self, in the sixth, the self becomes formless beyond mental comprehension. Our three-dimensional bodies can physically touch but not merge. Our minds, however, are a different story. They connect across the mental plane and retain separate identity even in connected states, but they are not divided and can become one through the bridge to the fourth dimension. Mirror neurons allow our bodies to match and reflect through deep rapport, and with fourth dimension bridging, you can essentially become that person, and the stronger spirit will come out dominant and can create change down to the quantum level in another person's body, and their own cellular structure will integrate the change across the double helix and even be capable of shutting off genetic coding or activating it. Do not attempt the following process. Swan Dive Protocol. 1. Prep work on client to make gathering fractured pieces possible. Covert hypnosis, meridian cleansing, body engagement, and distraction. 2. Healer must establish elevated state to hold higher vibration and create anchor of safety as a way to come back. 3. Forced rapport through mirror neurons to connect across all fractured selves of client and allow healer to feel in their body and mind what the client is feeling. 4. Diving into the depths of insanity and joining the client in their madness, swimming in the trauma and becoming it while remaining elevated above it simultaneously. 5. Integrating the soul shards back into their proper places in the client's neurology, flowing through feeling and enveloping them into healer's higher vibratory state. 6. Letting parasympathetic response engage in client, preparing to observe and guide the integration process as adrenal response spins its remaining charge. 7. Healer breaks deep rapport and ends mirror neuron connection and allows client to finish integration. Healer will also purge any retained energies from the client out of their body. One of my masters taught me how to do the swan dive, and he highly suggests against doing it unless absolutely necessary due to a very strong likelihood that if not pulled off with pinpoint accuracy, the healer can become trapped in the client's madness or delusion. Mentally, they can become lost forever and fracture completely and enter a deep state of psychosis known as space neuroses. The longer a person swan dives, the deeper the risk of losing themselves completely and having the safety cord of higher state be ripped away. Joint delusion then occurs and can open all trauma packets in your own body, creating a horrid conjoined version of both people's trauma. This amalgamation of traumas take over, and then both individuals can be lost forever in each other, stuck in a perpetual state of catatonia and rapid cycling age regression with delusional trauma alters. I'll provide an example of how this technique was employed to help someone with a level 3 trauma. I assisted my master in the prep work for the client, and then under his guidance, I fully committed to the swan dive. The first step was gaining rapport and trust on the conscious level and getting the body engaged through conscious breathing and movement to generate endorphins and create awareness of self, even with disassociated fracture subconscious parts. This consisted of Qigong, Kung Fu, Pranayam, meridian dredging, attachment breaking, neurolinguistic programming, covert hypnosis, state breaking, and state control. The second step was elevating myself to higher consciousness and willfully entering samadhi, superconscious state. This would allow me to not be pulled into a lower vibratory state while submerging myself into it. I achieved this by already having years of experience and practice, which allowed me to simply go there when I need to. The third step was staring into the client's eyes and connecting with their nervous system through a combined effort of bridging my subconscious mind-body connection to theirs and also rooting my energies into them on a quantum level through fourth dimension soul merging. The fourth step is the most dangerous part, joining the delusion of all collective fractured parts of the client, completely identifying with the madness inside, making their pain my pain, using my collective trauma and bridging it with theirs, complete soul exposure. Doing this allows me to be them in entirety. Though I still had my own physical body, on a conscious level, I was both aware of myself and what I was doing, but also feeling everything they felt internally. The fifth step is walking back, tracing out the original fractured path and navigating the fractured self back to where it originally came from before it split. It is all feeling-based and centered around chi. It is incredibly difficult to explain what this feels like and how it looks because it's all happening in the fourth dimension and being felt sensationally in the body at the same time. The sixth step is where you've got the fractured parts back and integration has begun, but you can't break rapport yet, And unfortunately, this is where it can be really hard to watch as the client goes through a delayed adrenal response. They may hysterically cry, thrash about, flail, scream, shake and tremble. It can't be stopped or discouraged. Their body is venting a latent charge from the adrenal chemicals it has held onto for years, and it needs to express from the body to spin the charge and allow the full integration to occur across the neurology. The seventh step requires the connection of mirrored expression to be severed. They can safely finish expressing on their own from here. In the initial start, I had to ride up and down the waves of reaction from the client's body, so it wasn't too much of a shock in the initial integration. But as the charge spun down a bit, only then was I able to disengage and start purging any retained energies from my own body.